Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is JGOD. In today's video we're going to be focusing on how to get better at Blackout Battle Royale. And I'm going to be giving you my top 10 beginner tips, which will hopefully help you get that first victory. The gameplay you're going to be seeing in the background is me playing my first match of Blackout when the servers came up. I'm going to be utilizing these tips to get that first victory. Hopefully you stick around. I'm going to kind of shorten it up, edit out some of the dull parts, and try and maximize the information I can give you in this video. If you do enjoy any of the content or any of the tips, you find them helpful, remember to hit that like button if you're brand new to the channel. Typically cover Call of Duty news, in-game updates, best class setups, subscriber breakdowns, as well as other tip and trick videos like this one you're seeing today. If any of that sounds interesting, make sure you subscribe and turn those notifications on. The first tip I want to talk about is all based around how to land faster so you can make sure you get that weapon and win more of those gunfights right off the landing. Obviously there's not any hard rules on this, but to keep it as simple as possible, you can see my flight path is starting from the top right corner, moving diagonally until it hits that number 7. This little area in red is probably where most people will land because people like to drop, land as close to the actual flight path, and then you can see that blue area that's kind of covered. The rest of the map is generally going to have less people there. For the specific match going on in the background, I decided to land at a construction site. There were 2 people there. I have to end up clearing them out. So definitely keep that in mind when you're landing in the specific areas. If you're going to land in a blue area, there's typically going to be 0 to 4 people. And then when you land in one of the hot areas, it's going to probably be 4 or more. And the difference really comes down to what kind of playstyle you want. A higher risk factor with a higher amount of kill potential, or a lower risk factor with a lower kill potential, which I'll talk a little bit more in depth about as we go on throughout the video and some of the other tips. Now that you have that spot chosen, you're going to want to make sure you get there as fast as possible. You can see right now I dove pretty much down to accelerate, get that full speed of 67 meters per second, and then I pretty much dive in this particular area, kind of watching this little green bar on the right to make sure I can get as close to the building as possible so I can land on top of the structure. Like I said, this was my first match. Ideally, I would have came in at a little bit lower descent, so I wasn't in my parachute very long because I could have even cut out a little bit of time there, been a little bit more efficient. Then I run and get my guns, and now in position. I at least have a weapon to start it off. I landed pretty quickly, got high ground, and now I can kind of position myself, sound whore a little bit, listen to footsteps, all that type of stuff. We'll get to tips in a little bit. You can see there's a guy coming around the corner, doesn't even have a weapon, easy kill, take him out. Not really much competition in that scenario. Kind of looking through the bag, obviously going to go through that, but let's go ahead and get on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is all about choosing the right fights and positioning yourself to win as many gunfights as possible without necessarily avoiding conflict. And the biggest part of this is optimizing situations you're put in by the game, depending on how the circle moves, how much loot you have, if you have heals, if you have armor, what kind of guns you have. Are they long range? Are you short range? Do you have enough ammo? Are you in duos, quads, or solos? Because depending on all those different variables, you're going to approach situations differently. And as you practice and get better at the game, you're going to know how to approach these much better, which in time should lead to more wins. What I tend to see a lot of people do is they chase the gunfire, which is okay. You want to move closer to the gunfire, find out where it's coming from, find out and assess the situation where people are, because you're going to want to know where everyone's at before you fire your weapon. If you fire your weapon, you're going to give away your position and you're going to increase the likelihood of getting third party. What I mean by that is you end up in an engagement one-on-one. You know that you're focused on them, they are focused on you, and that gives you tunnel vision. And as a result, somebody's going to come up from a side, end up killing both of you guys. Or they're going to wait till both of you guys fight it out. You're going to be low health, no armor, and then someone's just going to clean you up and get that easy little kill. And that's what's called third partying. They jump in on the engagement. Instead of getting involved when the action's going on, they wait for the optimal time, which is very smart to do, by the way. You can actually do that yourself, but you don't want to be that guy getting third party. You don't want to be in that engagement because you didn't look at your surroundings and know where someone was coming from. So a lot of times before you fire your weapon, even if you see someone, unless it's just a perfect opportunity, you're going to want to hold up. Make sure you assess the situation so you're not going to get flanked. Get to an optimal position and make sure you can get the kill while taking as little damage as possible. And the main reason for that is because you don't want to be at a significant disadvantage when you get into your next gunfight. So let's go ahead and move on to tip number 3. And tip number 3 is making sure that you are a harder target to see, harder target to shoot. And that goes for when you're looting, when you're moving around the map. There's a lot of things that you can do, whether it's slide jumping, just jumping in general at random, making yourself a harder target to hit, moving from cover to cover so that you're not automatically out in the open for an easy snipe. And along with this tip is to actually make sure that when you're looting bodies, a lot of times what people do is they'll just run up to the bag, stand in the open, and they're looting through the bag, and that sets up for an easy snipe because all a sniper needs is a good 1.5 to 2 seconds of you standing still for you to get deleted off the map. Some good snipers takes even less time than that. So anytime you go ahead and loot a bag, make sure you get down to the ground, prone, loot that bag, move on to the next spot. Even if you feel like you're in a very safe area, never take anything for granted. There's so many times where you're going to be in a position where you're like, nobody's around. Let me go ahead and loot this bag standing still. And then you're going to get sniped, and that's going to destroy everything. So go ahead and make sure you make that a habit as soon as possible. Go prone when you loot the enemy. So for tip number 4, I did a quick short video about that. I'm gonna leave a link down in the description if you want to go ahead and check that out. But it's pretty straightforward. It's activating your wingsuit when you jump off of buildings. Pretty much you have to run, jump, and hold the jump button from a high enough location so you don't go splat when you jump off. I did a little bit of video on it. Like I said, it's about 3 minutes. I do some of the do's and don'ts. So if you're not necessarily comfortable with that particular mechanic, go ahead and check out that video. But overall, the whole benefit of that is saving time. You saw me jump off the construction site. That allowed me to get down to the floor very quickly. I was able to move away from the zone, get safe, and now I'm positioned very well where I'm sitting in the zone alive, but still need a little bit more heals. Speaking of heals, the one little tip I did want to give about heals is that you can actually use them while moving. So keep that in mind. A lot of times I saw when people were streaming or just when I was playing with different people, they would just kind of stand still as they healed. And that's cool if you're in cover, not a big deal. But if you're trying to get from place to place, you're definitely going to want to make sure you heal while moving. So you're still a harder target to hit because, like I said, you're standing out the open healing. That's an easy kill shot for one of these snipers. That's 5 tips down and 5 more to go. If you are enjoying the video, reminder to hit that like button if you are enjoying any of the content so far. For tip number 6, it's all related to your equipment. And the tip is primarily just to make sure that you're aware of what your equipment is and use your equipment to maximize your odds. And included in that is the perks, which you can see I'm using there. So definitely make sure you use them when they can be an advantage to you. But getting back to equipment, that goes back to like your lethals, your stuns, your molotovs. Make sure that you have whichever one you ideally want to use in that spot so you're ready to go. So through time, you should be kind of making a mental checklist of which ones you prefer over others when you have them, and make sure they're in the right slot. I probably would never have a Molotov in that slot unless it's just absolutely the last piece of equipment I have. You can see right now I'm running 2 9-bangs, which that's going to prove crucial towards the end of the game. So you have to see how that plays out towards the end. Tip number 7 is all related to sound. So you're going to want to make sure you have at least earbuds in. If you can, a headset would be ideal, because you are going to be at a significant disadvantage when it comes to sound. They improved the sound quite a bit from the beta. I know that the sounds were very loud, but you couldn't really tell the height at which level the sound was coming from. I think based off what I've played so far, what I've seen, I think they've improved this significantly. So you can get that directional feel as well as the height. So you can pretty much pinpoint exactly where someone is. See right here, I'm getting the high ground. That's just a side note. I ended up spotting the guy, which you'll kind of see in the gameplay, but based off my loadout, I really couldn't do much from this range. I didn't have a sniper rifle. I didn't really feel confident that I could hit that dude and end that gunfight quick enough to the point where I didn't take any damage, that I didn't open myself up to getting third-partied, because obviously those scenarios can happen, especially since I just walked into a brand new environment. But getting back to tip number 7, which is sound, you definitely want to make sure that you're staying off of people's radar as much as possible. So if there's any way you can avoid making noise, avoid making noise. So that's if you're going to crouch walk instead of running. Ideally, you want to do that tactfully so you're not just out in the open. And that also includes limiting the use of vehicles just because they're very loud. The only time you really want to use a vehicle is if you're traveling in a group, or if you just want to move faster around the map from point A to point B. Typically, that's from outside the zone to inside the zone, or just from one location to another. But keep in mind, you want to limit that use as much as possible, because at the end of the day, you're just going to stack the odds against you, because your enemies will know where you're at, but you won't know where they're at, which is a huge disadvantage in a battle royale. As you'll see, I'm kind of posted up waiting in this area. I was kind of peeking this left side, kind of seeing what that guy was going to do, just trying to get this high ground, because positioning is important in this game. High ground is typically more advantageous. And a lot of times you can use a circle to your advantage. So the next tip that I'm going to talk about is positioning and high ground. And I think a lot of times when people reference positioning and high ground, they focus a lot on cover, which is a crucial part of that. Cover is definitely important. Trees are good, rocks are good, walls are good, buildings are good. All that stuff's amazing. But one thing that I don't see a lot of people talk about is positioning based off the zone. A lot of times if you're at the edge of the circle, which will typically reduce the angles at which you can be shot at, and in addition to that, you're going to see people running from outside the circle towards the inside of the circle, which puts them at a huge disadvantage. They're going to be running out in the open, no cover, none of that type of stuff. You can see I'm just kind of scouting the area, and then I'm end up running to this guy. Wasn't sure if he kind of cut across because there's a lot of trees. I didn't know if he saw me for sure. He didn't actually shoot at me, so I wasn't sure if he was a really good player. But you can see I'm just kind of scouting the area, seeing what's going on, seeing what the zone's telling me, because right now I got pretty good positioning. I kind of want to peek the area. I hear gunfire here and there. I hear a little bit of noise. Then I go ahead and kind of reposition, trying to pick this guy off because I know he's the only guy behind me. Based off this positioning and the way I scouted, I just got to play it as smart as possible. So positioning is really key. I get low ground. I want to make sure I can catch someone running around. I can hear a little bit better. Make sure I can sound whore. Hear a little bit of noises here and there, and I go ahead and peek them out. And that's definitely a huge advantage of having a sniper or a 4x scope, that you can actually see those ranges. You can see how I'm kind of making my movement a little unpredictable, kind of moving kind of in a figure 8. And I only have 2 more tips left, but I wanted to show this part, and then I'm going to skip a little bit further ahead so I could talk a little bit more about those other ones. But this one is all about positioning, knowing where your enemies are, because I scouted where that guy is. He hasn't really passed through this area, so I'm pretty sure he's still in this area. So I'm playing smart as possible. I am playing slow a little bit. I'm not really playing aggressive. And part of that has to do with me wanting to get a 100% win percentage by winning my first actual match of Blackout once the servers came on. You can see the guy ends up start creeping around, but since I have the height advantage, the guy has no clue and basically no chance. So this was smart positioning. I could have probably went aggressive and gone after him, but then I might have lost my armor. I might have lost some of my heals, which would have reduced my chances of winning significantly, because if you don't have armor and you don't have heals going into the final circle, odds are you're going to lose the match unless you just get lucky and those people are complete garbage. The odds of you winning are very low. And the 9th tip I wanted to talk about that applied in this scenario is aim for the head. I was trying to aim for the head. I had a little bit more recoil than I envisioned because it had been a little while since I was in a gunfight for this specific scenario. See, this guy had a ton of loot. I aim for the head. I end up shooting a little bit of the body. But the reason you want to aim for the head is 2 different reasons. One is it'll go ahead and negate that armor so that when they drop, you can actually pick up that armor if it's a higher level. This guy has level 2. I have level 1. That is an upgrade for me. And the second advantage of negating that armor is that they just get down that much quicker, so you take less damage as a result, which is always a good thing. So you want to keep that cycle alive. Do as much damage while taking the least amount of damage as possible. So at this point, I'm going to talk about that final tip. But in addition to that, I'm going to fast forward some of the gameplay. And you're going to see when it gets towards the end, a lot of these tips are going to come into play. And without further ado, the 10th and final beginner tip is to not go for early wins. And I know initially that might sound a little odd because you're watching this gameplay and you're hearing me say I'm going for a win in my first match. Obviously, I've already mastered a lot of these different things and have a good idea of the areas that I need to continue to work on. But at the end of the day, the point I'm at, I've already reached that point where I've gotten good enough at the game that I can actually focus on wins. As a brand new player to the game, you're going to want to work on your skill set first, and I promise that'll lead to wins. If you're that person that's going to focus on wins from day one and not actually work on the skill set, what you're going to find yourself doing is going and landing at a house, camping in a room for the entire 15 minutes, wait till the zone closes, and hopefully get into a gunfight with someone who's not good. And at the end of the day, you'll probably get wins, but not the same amount of wins you'd get if you actually worked on getting better at the game. Hopefully you enjoyed the video or found at least one of the top 10 beginner tips helpful. If you did, remember to hit that like button and subscribe with notifications on. At this point, I'm going to transition to the final sequence and show you at the end that I won my first match. So at this point, I already knew the circle was starting to close in. I saw the guy peek around the building. I tried to shoot him while he was on the ground. And you can see at this range, the weapon didn't do very much damage. I try to tap fire, and there ends up being another guy trying to engage him. So I get really lucky, but I also get in a position where I'm not taking any damage. I put that guy pretty much low health. The other guy ended up finishing him off just because he was so close. Then pretty much what I'm doing is trying to reposition and find out where this third guy is. I have a relatively good idea that he's to the left of me, to the east, and I slowly continue to peek the left side of me, kind of rotate, see who's on the right. I did see a little bit of gunfire from this left side, but I'm not 100% sure where the guy is just yet. I'm kind of paying attention to this guy, trying to see if I can kill him off, get a few shots on him, and then I continue to rotate back and forth. Ideally, I would have loved to get this kill on the guy on the right, but it doesn't end up happening. I'm shooting this guy, and you can see his weapon just is not very strong, especially without the right attachments. I probably should have put that 4X on the ICR because I think the ICR is just that much more accurate. So when I go to check on the guy on the right, the guy from the east ended up cleaning him out. He was pretty much one shot. It looked like he hit him. Guy went down. Now it's a 1v1 scenario. I don't have the best scenario when it comes to weapons, and somehow I get BS'd by this guy. You're gonna see he ends up shooting through the rock and I lose all my armor. End up in a bad scenario. I probably could have used one of those trauma kits to heal myself a little bit faster. But right here, I'm just trying to peek off a head glitch, shoot the guy, while also keeping in mind that the zone is closing on his end, so he has to come towards me. So I'm just trying to bait him out, and for whatever reason, this guy's able to shoot through rocks. You can see it was practically impossible for me to see him, but he was able to land a ton of shots. So I don't know if that's just latency where I end up getting shot, and by the time I went down, then all the shots registered. But at the end of the day, I'm in a kind of a tough scenario because now I don't have armor. But what I do have is 2 different 9-bangs that I can use. And like I talked about in tip number 6, you definitely got to make sure you use your equipment. I'm right at the edge of the storm. I do got to run in. So what I do is instead of pushing out to the left side where it's open, I take a little chance through the storm, get behind a tree because I want to make sure I have cover. I know that the guy's got to approach me. I'm going to be able to hit him with the 9-bang, kind of peek where he's at. Hit him with the 9-bang, get close enough. I know he's behind the tree. And then I go ahead and throw both. I go ahead and reposition. I run up. It ends up being a close call. I'm already low health. I should have probably healed. The guy does a good job of evading me. And I get the win. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Would you like to see gameplay breakdowns like the one I just did for that final sequence? But for an entire match and maybe chop it up just a little bit, so it fits around under 15 minutes, because battle royale matches tend to be pretty long, and for some people they might not enjoy that, but there's other people that want to see every single second of it. So let me know down in the comment section so I can kind of be aware. You can see the first match got 4 kills. Then I will go ahead and show you that combat record so you can see that 100% win ratio. First match on, first win. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.